College is a place for self-discovery as much as self-doubt. It's a place for intellectual stimulation as well as other types of stimulation. It's a place to get lost in textbooks, in classes, in dorm rooms, in bars. College life can be daunting, but it also demands as well as develops a certain specific set of navigational skills, useful, obviously, for campus, for life, and for social circles. For Celine Karadag, her freshman year at Harvard is going to bring challenges and opportunities in different forms of expression and communication. And she's going to struggle to try to understand how life can open up through language. Turkish-American author Elif Batuman's debut novel, The Idiot, has been described by some as a portrait of the artist as a young woman. And it certainly does feel like a first-person Joycean collection of observations and realizations. Batuman offers us a semi-autobiographical glimpse of what it was like growing up in the 90s, trying to make sense of classes and theories, of friends, crushes, of art, and of life itself. In this coming-of-age story, we see how a search for meaning can be also a finding meaninglessness. It's a story as much about alienation as it is about unexpected connections, as much about commitment as the confusion of what commitment means. And it's the book we're going to be reading here today, finally, on Litscapes. All right. Welcome to Litscapes, everyone. Thank you for joining us once more on another episode of Litscapes. I know it's been a while since our last one. It's actually been a while since our first one, our only episode. And I do apologize for making you guys wait so long. I think it's been over a month now since we posted the episode, the pilot episode on Ex-Wife by Ursula Parrott. What a great book. I still remember that book and I feel like reading it again. Highly recommended. But anyhow, that's not what we're doing here today. We're doing something else entirely. We're going to be reading Elif Batuman's The Idiots. But before we get to that, again, it's been a while since we last did this, I know, and a lot of you have been asking me lately when the second episode is dropping, and so here we are. Finally, we're doing it, but it's been a struggle.
I swear to God, as soon as possible.
As ASAP as possible, we'll have it up for you. Yeah.
Litscape fans, we're having it.
Let's do hope so. Let's do hope we can have it as ASAP as possible, because the people are demanding, right? Our next episode.
Yeah, they are.
Well, maybe not so much demanding, not so much clamoring for, but they certainly do deserve it. But it's just been a bit of a struggle getting the team together, syncing up everyone's agenda, getting the equipment. I mean, guys, if you had any idea the professional, super expensive equipment we're using to shoot this, you would understand. If you could actually look at what I'm seeing right now, it's honest, it's ridiculous. We have one camera and my phone held together on the tripods by duct tape. Seriously, that is what's keeping the cameras up on the tripods. Duct tape. Our light is taped to a broomstick, right? And we're using this little night lamp.
But the night lamp is cool.
It's nice. It's a nice night lamp.
Revistas, its last episode.
Yeah, it's.
So now it's dark.
we're doing what we can, right? We're doing what we can, but we do want to give you, right, as high a quality as possible, while at the same time making it cozy, making it welcoming, right? Here we are, we're reading, we're drinking coffee together. We've actually had some thunderstorms lately, and it gives it this very cozy feeling that just the perfect moment to be reading.
We don't know if that coffee sounds actually in the podcast, but here it sounds really cozy.
We have coffee brewing in the background. Yeah, I'm with my cold brew right now, but it's so again, putting everything together takes a bit. Getting everyone's schedule synced up takes a bit. The equipment, like I said. I know that the original intention was to have this have an episode every month, and it's been more than 2 months since the last one. And again, I do apologize, but I hope that we can. We're still sorting out, some issues. We're still ironing out some wrinkles, but this operation is going to go a lot smoother. I guarantee that. But we'll get into that in a bit. First of all, let's get into the book. All right.
Before you get into the book, don't forget spoilers.
Spoilers, guys. We're gonna have spoilers. Please keep that in mind. Okay. Yeah. If you haven't read The Idiot by Elif Batuman and you wanna join us on this episode, I do suggest reading it. Of course, take your time. It's all right. My ebook clocks in at just over 300 pages. The hard copy is over 430. I think it's 432 pages. The hard copy, the hard cover. But this is the book. This is the book we're reading. Okay, that's Elif Batuman's The Idiot. Castro, maybe at some point we can have an image, some graphic floating around here somewhere, right?
Maybe just
Like, yeah. It's like, hey, look, this is the book we're reading out on. I don't know, but we'll get some graphics up for you guys.
really expensive and nice and sweet
Yeah.
graphics.
Yeah. Okay.
Not just that PNG.
Yeah. No. Or, like a cardboard floating over, like.
The worst one background, not that one.
No. We'll get some good-looking stuff for you guys. But this is it. This is Elif Batuman's The Idiot. And why this book, right? It's a book about precisely the college life. That transition from high school to college, and it's like I mentioned in the intro, it's about this college freshman, Celine. But the reason for choosing this book this time of year is because today is April 21st. Castro, I hope we can have this in under 2 weeks. We can post this in under 2 weeks, right? It's gonna be start of May. Hopefully by the start of May we'll have this posted for you guys. And that means one thing. For high school seniors all around the world, that means the end of one chapter in their lives and the beginning of another. And it's daunting, it's challenging. I know it can.
It's frustrating.
It's frustrating, right? I imagine that you guys watching. First of all, you guys watching this, you should be studying. You should be studying for your finals. But I know that's the last thing that some of you guys want to be doing, and it's certainly the last thing that seniors want to be thinking about. High school finals, college entrance exams, right? You guys just want to get out of school, go to take your summer break, right? Not think about what's to come next year in college. But that's precisely why I chose this book to sort of, give you guys a little insight, a little heads up about what to expect, right? So yeah, I know it can be tough. I know that it poses a lot of difficulties and challenges, but at the same time, it can be a lot of fun. It's going to be very different, college from high school, right? In a lot of ways, it's going to be harder, more work, more demanding, but in other ways it's gonna be more fun, you get more freedom, more independence. There's a lot to look forward to, no doubt. And I feel that this book, The Idiot, even though it takes place in the mid-90s, and I know that for a lot of you that's gonna be somewhat unrelatable, but still there is that essence, right, of what it means, what it's like to go from high school to college. So that's what it's about. It's we have this college freshman starting off at Harvard. She's a linguistics major. She is of Turkish descent. Right? Am I focused?
You're focused.
Good. Yeah, can you guys see me? Look, I mean, as long as you guys can see me and hear me, right? So what if we have duct tape holding up the cameras, right?
It's the experience of being a freshman.
We actually have a college freshman doing this for us, right? Castro, our producer, Emiliano Castro, our producer and director.
Now, if you haven't seen me, I have a super grown-out beard.
This guy looks older than me.
There won't be a face reveal anymore.
No, not anytime soon. Please, no. Let's avoid that. We don't want to scare away the audience. Not yet, at least. But yeah, this is actually quite the college experience right here, right? We're trying to make do with what we have. But as long as you guys can see me, as long as you guys can hear me, and as long as you guys can follow along with the books and continue to share reading experiences, that's what it's all about, right? So this book, The Idiot, that's why I chose it, because I wanna transmit a little bit of that first college approach. So we have this girl, our narrator protagonist, Celine, right? She just makes it to college, and the year is 1995. And I actually, it never explicitly mentions the year until there is a reference at one point. There's a reference to the Atlanta Olympic Games, which I remember very dearly, very specifically, because it was when I first had my first celebrity, you could say, celebrity crush.
But like, you really actually meet her?
No, of course I didn't meet her. She was an Olympian. She was actually the gold medalist in gymnastics, from Ukraine. Lydia Podpokayeva, if I remember correctly. Beautiful girl. And I remember I love at first sight. Absolute love at first sight, right? I went out and I bought a copy of Sports Illustrated where she had some pictures. Because again, there was no internet as we know it today. But internet's gonna play a big role in this book, particularly email. So that's actually the way that the book starts out with. Celine gets to Harvard, to campus, and she's giving her institutional email address, and she has no idea what that means or what to do with it, right? She's also given, imagine, an Ethernet cable. Do you guys even know what an Ethernet cable is? Because nowadays with Wi-Fi, it's like, who needs wires, right?
Gamers kind of know what that means, but
maybe
I don't think,
maybe gamers, right?
Boring engineers, people know actually.
Yeah, well, I still use one. It just provides a more stable, a faster connection, internet connection. But so she's giving these things, and she has no idea what to do with them. She says, "Do I hang myself with this? Or, what does an email address mean, right? If you're not actually there, right? So it's the start of email. That's what gives us the hint that this is taking place in the mid-90s. Email is going to be important precisely because it allows our protagonist, Celine, to explore different forms of communication, different ways to express herself. And that's going to be another important theme of the novel, how language allows us to present ourselves in different ways, to capture and understand reality in different ways, and how it shapes our relationships. So through email, she's going to establish eventually this connection with this guy that she likes. Ivan is a guy that she meets in in Russian class. She is a linguistics major, Celine, but he is a math major, a few years older. He is from Hungary. She is, again, Turkish American. And email is gonna keep them in touch throughout parts of the book, right? So language plays a big role. Like I said, there's a lot of linguistics classes, philosophy of language, constructed worlds, reading, literature, Russian. She takes a lot of Russian. So that plays also a big role. She's a big fan, she's a big believer of the Sapir-Whorf theory that essentially says that the way you perceive reality depends to a large extent on the language you speak and think in. So that's a lot, again, what the book is about, right? But it's essentially this. At one point in her career, Batuman wrote in an essay, she urges to write long, pointless novels, and that's what this is. It's a long, pointless novel.
You think that a pointless novel would be like a way of seeing college life pointless? Well, nowadays it kind of is.
Well, I mean, the point of college is, yeah, you want to go there to learn about stuff, but
smoking weed, but you don't hear that from us.
Guys, if you're not smoking weed in college, then you're probably missing out on a lot of the college experience. No, but it's a lot more than that, right? Smoking and drinking and partying, right?
It's about exchanging smart ideas with other people.
It's about exchanging smart ideas with other people. That's precise, and it's about also making a lot of mistakes. I think we had mentioned that at some point in another episode. Well, our only other episode, but it's a lot about making mistakes, fun anecdotes. But anyhow, it's a pointless novel. Hardly anything goes on, right? There is really no plot, and that's precisely the kind of novels that we want to be reading here at Litscapes. Is these literary fiction. This book was actually shortlisted for the Pulitzer Prize. That's a big deal. Those of you who don't know, the Pulitzer for literature is the biggest award that a novel can receive, right? And this was a finalist back in 2017. So it's a book that's a lot more character driven than plot driven, right? It's very introspective. Like I had mentioned, it's a very Joycean story about just this character making observations, the conclusions she arrives at, and stuff. So we're gonna be reading the last few pages. The last few pages, not the last chapter actually, because the way the book is structured is not by chapters. We actually have these breaks throughout the book that sort of represent chapters. Some of them can be a paragraph long, 1 or 2 paragraphs. Others can be 5, 6, 7, up to 10 pages long. But they don't really feel like chapters as such, precisely because they're so varied in length. And it's broken down into her whole freshman year. So we have the first part is the fall and the spring semesters. And then the second part is the summer break, where our protagonist, after her freshman year, decides to take a job teaching English in Hungarian villages. And she does this in order to get closer to Ivan, again, the guy she likes. But man, the whole interaction with Ivan throughout the book, at times it's very
lame.
At times it's lame, yeah. It's pathetic. It's pathetic at times. At other times you're kind of cheering for them. But it's clear that neither of them knows what they're doing. And that's another thing that college is going to be about, right? You're still kind of looking for your own way of doing things, whether it's flirting, going out with someone, or studying, whatever it is, right? You're still kind of looking for defining your own style. And Celine,
From experience, I think
she's
that-
awkward.
That style, I think it's more where you're hitting your time and how you organize it. You know, you can handle those two.
Yeah.
But it depends on the person.
Celine is still young. Celine is 19, right? She's still pretty young. She's gonna be.
19 years in college.
I think she starts at 18.
She's cute first English.
Yeah. No, well, that's actually that's the normal age, I think, to start college. 18. I know that a lot of my students they're already 18, 19, but yeah, she's gonna be 18, 19 by the time the book is gonna end. But anyhow, we're gonna be reading the last few pages because there is no chapter as such. So she has just finished her this English teaching program in these villages. She has met up with Ivan in Hungary, but he has just left he's going to a conference in Japan, and she's going to Turkey to spend some time with her family. So that's where we're at right now in the book. So let's just let's get to the end. In my ebook marks 313 pages total. I am at page 299. Castro's playing with some light right now. No, but you're distracting me. That's the problem, that our audience might see me distracted. No, let's not show them the worst of me. Not yet, at least. Yeah, we don't want to scare them off again. Anyhow, okay, so that's where we're at. Celine has just come back. All right, let's get to it, everyone, because we're running a bit long here. So let's get to the ending finally. This is The Idiot by Elif Batuman. You know what? Let's first take a short break, and we'll be right back with the last pages. So it's time to get late. We're going to be reading the last pages of Elif Batuman's The Idiot. Okay, so everyone, please follow along. Okay, again, I am on page 299 of 313. This is on my ebook. And let's see how this ends. Just a quick, I am excited. Yeah, because it's been a while. You know, I've been on this page for the past like 3 weeks. More, honestly. It's taken us just so long to do this episode.
Like way before you went to Morelia.
Querétaro, but yeah.
Querétaro, yeah.
Right. Before spring break, I had already finished the book, so I've needed a refresher. And speaking of refreshers for you guys, remember the idea here of the show is that we will be reading together the last chapter or the last few pages of a book, right? I have not finished this. We're barely going to do this for the first time. So let's get lit on Litscapes. Here we go. The only person who had been standing at the customs exit as long as I had was a man holding a sign that read, "Royal Emirates Tourism welcomes Mr. Ahib Sadin." At various points, 2 different women also rushed up to meet me and asked if I had seen Ahib Sadin yet. "Not yet," I said. A man came out of the gate in a blindingly white shirt and jacket, accompanied by 4 women in black burqas. It was Ahib Sadin. For some reason, his arrival was the decisive event that made me feel I had been waiting too long. I went to the information booth and asked them to page the driver from Guben Laboratories. They said it wasn't possible to page a person unless you knew their name. I pointed out that I knew the name of the laboratory. They said you couldn't page a laboratory. It wasn't done. "Couldn't you just do it as a kindness?" I asked. My mother often talked about kindnesses in her conversations with Turkish service employees. Compared with Hungarian, Turkish sounded clear as water, but speaking was really difficult. To say anything, I felt like I had to search my brain for every phrase I had ever heard before and then redeploy the one that best matched the circumstances. That's one of the things that I really enjoyed about the book, is that there's a bunch of all these explanations on how different languages work, particularly, of course, Turkish, because our protagonist and author are from Turkey, or of Turkish descent, and there's a lot of Russian in the book as well. So we get into these grammatical explorations and linguistic differences. For me, it's fun seeing how these things work. I can imagine it could put off some readers, but there are these observations, like when she says right now, compared with Hungarian, Turkish sounded clear as water, but speaking was really difficult. There's a bunch of these little side notes throughout the book. I've enjoyed them. Not everyone might, but it's cool to see how different languages, how they can be so different in depicting reality. Anyhow, they eventually agreed to page Guven Bey, Mr. Guven, which obviously wasn't going to accomplish anything because Guven was a common given name. It meant trust, and it wouldn't be used on its own, without a surname, to page someone at the airport. I waited around a while anyway. Nobody showed up. Yeah, because we have Celine. Celine is at the airport in Turkey. I think she's in Ankara or in Istanbul. I don't remember. But she's in Turkey. Her plane has just landed, and her mother has sent her a driver through the company she works for. But Celine has no idea who this driver is, so that's why she's just waiting there for this driver to show up. I used the second token to call the lab again. That's another. I'm sorry. We have all these digressions, right? But it's another cool thing. The fact that this story is taking place in 1995, at least for me, makes it feel very nostalgic, right? This is a moment in history where there were no smartphones. If you wanted to get in touch with someone, you had to use a payphone, and apparently, payphones in Turkey used tokens. I remember that in the US back then.
What were our tokens exactly?
Tokens are these coins that have no value outside of their purpose. It's like the tokens you get at an arcade, like tickets, right? They're used for a very specific purpose. So it's like tokens you would use at a fair or on an arcade. In the US, payphones were 25 cents, were a quarter of a dollar. And here in Turkey, they have these specific tokens, right? So you want to get in touch with someone, you need to call someone, you have to look for a payphone, you have to make sure you had change. It's not like nowadays that, you want to get in touch with someone and you immediately just text them. You're constantly in touch with people. And this is something that I really, really enjoyed about the book. I wouldn't classify it as a historical novel, but it's so mid-90s. I really like that. And I think that for you younger readers, it really provides a glimpse into what it was like as a millennial. Again, growing up in the mid-90s, coming of age at the turn of the century. It's actually pretty cool. But anyhow, let's continue. I used the second token.
Being a millennial is pretty cool.
Being a millennial is pretty cool, yeah. I am a millennial, yeah. Well, here we have Elif, and again, this is a semi-autobiographical novel. Pretty autobiographical, actually. Celine is starting college in 1995. I started college myself in 2001. So, yeah. Anyhow, I used the second token to call the lab again. What, you mean Yusuf Bey hasn't come yet? A secretary said. A wave of hilarity rose in my chest. I knew Yusuf Bey. He had been my grandfather's driver in Ankara for years. He was never on time anywhere. Once, he broke a car by driving over an enormous boulder that was sitting right in the middle of the road. When my grandfather asked, Yusuf, why didn't you drive around the boulder? He said, I thought it was paper. Once I knew it was Yusuf Bey, I found him right away. He was standing in a corner eating sunflower seeds. Oh, so you're Salim Han. He marveled. Salim Hanim. He marveled, brushing off his hands. The last time we met, you were shorter. I was 10 years old. Ah, so that's why. Everything in Belgian and Daphne's house was tiny. The chairs, the plates, the notepads. My toes barely fit in the slippers. Belgium had made a beautiful dinner with stupid grape leaves. Battered... Oh, sorry. Ah. What am I reading here? I'm sounding now like my dyslexic students. Belgium had made a beautiful dinner with stuffed grape leaves, buttered mullet that you ate whole, and cranberry beans stewed in olive oil. Cranberry beans. After dinner, Daphnis and my cousin Ayhan came to visit. In the years since I had seen him, he had become sinisterly handsome, with tousled chestnut hair and penetrating blue eyes. He had just started a new job in an office run by his father, having been fired from his previous position for biting a man's ear. The four of us watched the evening news. A bomb had gone off in Atlanta, harming nobody. That's the Atlanta Olympic Games, right? So I remember the games, the Atlanta Games, specifically for Lidia Podpukayeva, the Ukrainian gymnast and my first crush, and for the bombing. Which I remember. I do remember someone was injured. I remember pictures of it with like blood on the ground. But anyhow, again, I digress. A bomb had gone off in Atlanta, harming nobody. A forest fire had been raging for weeks in Marmaris. It was now 30 fires and nobody knew how to put them out. In Valencia, a matador had been gored to death. They showed his body being tossed around by the bull, so lightly it seemed, and then his coffin was borne away on a sea of shoulders. Aunt Belgian changed the channel. African men in loincloths were bounding across a field of tall yellow grass. Ah, the Japanese Dracula, said my cousin Ayhan. How they can jump. He repeated the phrase Japanese Dracula several times. How can they be Japanese? It's Africa, said Daphne. The Japanese Dracula may also be found in Africa. If only I could jump like that. Can you imagine? I'd come home from work in the evening and jump like this. He stood up to demonstrate, capsizing a little table but catching it before it hit the floor. So, kids, he said, are we going to a bar or what? To a bar now? Are you crazy? Daphne said. Celine just got off an airplane. She's tired. Anyway, don't you work tomorrow? Aunt Belgian said. Not until 8:30. That means I have to get up at 7:30. I sleep for 3 hours a night. 4 hours maximum. So there are 5 hours to go to a bar. Jump home to bed, Japanese Dracula, Aunt Belgian said. If only, said Ayhan sadly, picking up his jacket. The rim of the bathtub and the top of the mirror cabinet were crowded with products for dry or damaged hair. I saw a deep recovery healing shampoo for deep damage repair, a dry remedy moisturizing mask for damaged curly hair, a total repair conditioner for hair damaged and dried by styling products, an ultimate moisture conditioner for very stressed hair, and the bottle that just read, emergency treatment, hair damaged by dryness. I stood under the shower, luxuriating in the hot water yet troubled by a mounting sense of unease about my relative's hair. Oh man, imagine you go into a shower like that and you're like, what shampoo do I use? It's like
you go to these fancy weddings and Spanish.
Yeah, these etiquettes.
All these words like from smaller to taller, just all I see that's like the situation.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it's like almost like a lost in translation kind of thing, right? What's this for? It actually reminds me a little bit of precisely the very beginning of the novel when Celine is confused with email and an Ethernet cable. What's this for? Anyhow, the sofa bed was designed for someone different from me. Not just smaller, but also, it seemed to me, with a different personality. In the morning, Daphne took me to see the famous university where she studied business management. It stood on a hilltop overlooking the Bosphorus, just above a 15th century fortress that had figured in the siege of Constantinople. Even though it was the summer, the university had an atmosphere of late nights and intense relationships, of the oldest and the newest books, and for the first time I felt a flicker of excitement about going back to school in the fall. We visited Topkapi Palace, where we paid extra to go inside the harem, an exquisitely tiled labyrinth formerly known as the Golden Cage. The harem was beautiful, yet I felt relieved when it was time to leave for our next destination, a giant shopping mall where we sat in a courtyard and ate Belgian waffles. All around us, women and teenagers were also eating Belgian waffles. The mall had a Japanese stationery store where I bought a new spiral notebook. It had the most supple and creamy paper and a pink cover decorated with a maroon anthropomorphic bean. The bean had one hand on its hip and was waving with the other hand. It was a marvelous notebook. Our plane got to Antalya at 10 at night. My mother had arrived some hours earlier. As usual, she had elegant new things I had never seen or thought of before. Eyeglasses with extra thin lenses and thick frames, the palest taupe sandals with kitten heels, a wine-colored leather overnight bag. Her toenails were painted almost the same taupe as the sandals, but even paler, a color I had never before seen on nails. The sandals were mesmerizing. They themselves looked like two well-turned women. My mother couldn't understand how I had so much energy after a plane trip. "It isn't normal," she said. "Have you taken something?" Mothers, right? I said that maybe it was because I hadn't taken anything. The worried expression on her face didn't change. "Take this," she said, and gave me half a Valium. My mother herself had taken half a Valium on the plane from New York a few days earlier, and had subsequently lost her passport and entered the country in some way that she said it would be better if I didn't know about. Yeah, of course, because this is 1995. I imagine that customs were a lot more lax back then. Later, in Ankara, my mother had been walking down a street and had fallen down because the pavement was so uneven. A grocer's helper ran out of her grocery, picked her up, called her sister, and offered her a cigarette. Well, that was Turkey. The roads were crap, but people were respectful to their elders. "This came for you in Ankara," my mother said, handing me a postcard with a picture of the Bridge of Sighs. The back was covered with compact, curly handwriting. "Hi, Celine. Well, I made it to the birthplace of your literary hero, Casanova. Haha. The atmosphere is very decadent, almost unreal. I keep feeling like I'm in death in Venice and about to succumb to the plague on my way to trying to ravish a small boy or something. Bill just left. We had an extremely intense time, with even more ups and downs than usual, not to mention our standard debate about art in every single cathedral. Also, I've been having really freaky dreams here. I think I might be subconsciously affected by the fact that Venice has no classical history. It was only founded in the 5th century, by refugees from Attila the Hun. I guess with my classical sensibility, it makes sense that I felt more integrated in Rome. Then again, who knows, maybe I'm just freaked out about going back to Belgrade. Anyway, speaking of Attila, I hope you're faring well in the land of the devil incarnate and nobody's chasing you with antlers. I really wish we could have one of our long talks. I wanted to tell you about a dream I had involving an orgiastic carnival with nuns, but I'm out of room as you can see. Love, Svetlana. Now, Svetlana is Celine's best friend. They met in, I think it was also the Russian class, along with Ivan. Svetlana is from Yugoslavia, well, specifically from Serbia. And she's been traveling around Europe precisely at the same time that Celine is in Europe. And I like, again, the way that these characters stay in touch precisely is through email, postcards, none of these, text messages and Instagram posts that we have nowadays. It, again, for me at least, it feels very nostalgic.
You were a college student, right?
I was a college student during this time, yeah, and I would write emails and letters to friends. Yeah, postcards when I traveled. Yeah.
It's kind of
I still do. Right. I still send postcards and letters every now and then. I was actually thinking the other day that I should one of my assignments next year is gonna be precisely to write an actual letter and mail it to someone. Yeah. We'll see how that goes. Anyhow, we're almost done here. There was something unnerving about the Antalya Hotel, the constant hissing of sprinklers in the undergrowth, the startled expressions of the staff members in their gold-braided uniforms, the shrubs on which huge orange-red blossoms gaped like demented lions with rigid stick-like tongues. I heard Russian everywhere. The beginning of my course of study in the Russian language had coincided with a boom in Russian tourism to the Turkish Mediterranean. Though it was August, the leather stores were full of Russian people buying enormous sheepskin coats. They were planning for the future. There was a dinner buffet with a kebab station and a swan made of butter sweating in a tub of ice. We all sat at a long table. Me, my mother, Daphne, Aunt Belgian, Aunts Sara, Seney, and Arsu. Arsu's son Murat, and Murat's new girlfriend Yudum. I don't speak Turkish, so
Me neither.
Yeah.
We have a Turkish book down there.
I do have a Turkish book.
I think it's like a Turkish dictionary.
Yeah, no, my tourist guide, travel guide, Lonely Planet.
No, it's not a dictionary, right?
It's not. No, it's a travel guide. But I don't know if I'm pronouncing any of these names right. Anyhow, whenever Yudum stepped away for a minute, everyone started criticizing her. Daphne took exception to her name, which meant sip. Who has a name like that? Asked Daphne, whose name meant Laurel. Yudum had to share a room with Murat's mother, Arsu, who worked for the Secret Service, had a mania for cleanliness, and was always climbing on chairs to dust the invisible tops of things. Murat got his own room, but Yudum wasn't allowed to stay with him. She had to stay with Arsu. Together they dusted the top of the wardrobe. I tried to hang out with my peer group, Daphne, Murat, and Yudum, but was unable to assimilate myself to their mode of being. They seemed always to be waiting for something, for the removal of some obstacle, for a business to open, for the sun to move, or for someone to come back from going to get something. Whenever they actually did anything, like go in the water, eat lunch, or walk somewhere, they did it in an abstracted, half-hearted way, as if to show that this was just a side diversion from the main business of waiting. All they talked about was when the thing they were waiting for was going to happen. But whenever that thing did happen, nothing seemed to change. The sense of provisionality was the same. It just gradually found a new object. I feel like that line really captures a bit of the story. Yeah. All they talked about was when the thing they were waiting for was going to happen. But whenever that thing did happen, nothing seemed to change. That's this book. Like, nothing really happens, and when something finally does happen, everything kind of stays as it was before. In the end, I spent most of my time alone, reading or swimming. I was more into swimming than anyone else in my family. That came from being an American. I also walked around more. She goes from there to here, from here to there, from there to here again, Aunt Arsu observed more than once. She's been like that since she was a child, my mother said proudly. My mother swam for half an hour a day, holding her head very upright. Sometimes I joined her. Once when we were swimming along like that together, we came upon a gigantic turd floating at eye level. Ew. Oh, God. Yeah. That's pretty gross. I wonder if that's like I don't want to say like a Turkish public pool thing.
It's like a balneario.
Like a balneario kind of thing, like a public pool. Thinking it might be some kind of a stick or a small log, I pointed it out to my mother. "It's shit," she said with a pained expression. None of my aunts believed what we had seen. They kept trying to refute us on theoretical grounds. "Shit would have fallen apart into small pieces," Aunt Arzu said. "It would never float intact like that," Senai agreed. "Who heard of shit floating? Does shit float? I've never heard of such a thing," Sara chimed in. "I say this as a doctor," said my mother. "Go swim over there and you'll see shit floating." Every day near sunset, I swam out to the plastic raft that was tethered near the buoys, about 100 meters from the shore. I lay flat on my back on the warm blue plastic, listening to the sloshing of the waves and to all the inner noises one's head made after swimming. The sun dipped toward the horizon, a little earlier every day. I lay with my feet facing the shore and thought about how 5,000 miles that way toward the sun was Boston, whereas Tokyo, where Ivan was, lay 5,000 miles in the direction of the encroaching darkness, 5,000 miles farther in the same direction, clockwise, from the North Pole was California. I was usually the only person on the raft, but one afternoon I became aware of a man headed in my direction. He was swimming the crawl, unhurriedly and somehow inexorably, turning his face to breathe every 4 strokes. On reaching the raft, he treaded water for a minute, squinting. He was in his 40s or 50s, with a shaved head, and pulled himself up on the metal ladder. "It's okay?" he asked, pointing at the raft. I nodded. He lay on his back a couple of feet away from me, propped on his elbows, water glinting on his arms and his rising and falling chest. You could tell from looking at him that he was Russian. The raft continued to rock and splash for a while, then slowly settled down. I decided to talk to the man. Outside of school, I had never spoken Russian to anyone who was actually from there. I told him I was studying Russian in the university. "Is that so?" he said, sounding only slightly bored. He asked where the university was, where I was from, where my parents were from, where I was born, and what I studied. All questions I knew how to answer. I asked what he did by profession. He said he was a businessman. "Is it interesting?" I asked. "The point isn't whether it's interesting," he said after a moment, and rubbed his thumb and index finger together. I felt a jolt of sexual current, and I was appalled. What was so attractive? His indifference to boredom? The way he had invoked money? What did I care about his money? I remembered how alienated I had felt in the Hungarian villages, listening to the Beatles sing about money and women. I thought it was some weird 1950s thing. But what if my body was also responded in some way to money? What if that was the way women were? "So," said the Russian man, "are you here alone?" I shook my head. "My mother and 4 aunts are here." "4 aunts," he said. "That's a lot." He squinted at the shore, possibly looking for aunts. "And in the evenings?" "In the evenings? Do you spend the evenings with your 4 aunts?" I immediately felt the same sense of insult and injury I had felt at times with Ivan, as if he were making fun of me or trying to trick me. "I don't know," I said. "And what don't you know?" I looked over at him, at his arm, which had a brown birthmark and a smallpox vaccination, and at his mouth, which was so clearly, though for reasons I couldn't articulate, not an American person's mouth. "It was very pleasant to meet you," I said, and slid to the edge of the raft and back into the cool water, which seized me all at once, all over my body, not forgetting a single inch. Alright, yeah, just a couple more pages. For the first 5 or 6 days I didn't suffer at all, carried along by the change of scene and the sense of a progression. This was the next step in the story. Ivan was in Tokyo and I was here. It was like when 2 characters in a movie went to 2 different places. Then something changed. My life no longer seemed like a movie to me. Ivan was still in the movie, but had left me behind. Nothing extraordinary was happening anymore, or would ever happen again. I was just there with my relatives, living pointless, shapeless days that weren't bringing me any closer to anything. It seemed to me that this state of affairs was a relief to my mother. From her perspective, I thought the past weeks had been a perilous, temporary adventure, something to be endured, and now things were back to normal. It was painful to feel at such cross purposes with her. Almost everything that was interesting or meaningful in my story was, in her story, a pointless hazard or annoyance. This was even more true with my aunts. They didn't take anything I did seriously. It was all some trivial, mildly annoying side activity that I insisted on for some reason, having nothing to do with real life. I couldn't challenge or contradict this view, even to myself, because I really didn't know how to do anything real. I didn't know how to move it to a new city, or have sex, or have a real job, or make someone fall in love with me, or do any kind of study that wasn't just a self-improvement project. For the first time in my life, I couldn't think of anything I particularly wanted to study or to do. I still had the old idea of being a writer, but that was being, not doing. It didn't say what you were supposed to do. I got physically sick. My stomach hurt. I felt nauseated all the time, and especially when I tried to read, my legs and shoulders ached. I lost the strength to go anywhere or do anything, or smile, or hold my mouth up in a normal position when people talked to me. My face just felt like a cake. My aunts thought I was sulking or angry and teased me. I wasn't sulking, I just couldn't move my face. I couldn't eat or think about eating. I couldn't begin to think about sitting through the dinner buffet, about listening to everyone say passive-aggressive stuff to Yudum trying to accrue social capital by mocking me and Daphne, to Aunt Sara plying me with lamb and teasing me about how I used to be a vegetarian, and to Murat saying the bechamel needed more butter. My mother told everyone I had an upset stomach and ordered tea and toast from room service. The toast came lined up on a silver rack, like outgoing mail, with quince jam, a kind of jam I had always made fun of in the past. After a few days, the physical symptoms passed. Inside my soul, I still felt like I had fallen off the end of the conveyor belt, but I was able to eat, read, swim, and hold my face together such that I wasn't constantly staring at people with the stricken eyes of death. My mother and I took a day trip to visit my grandmother's half-brother, Sucru, who had recently bought an interest in a hotel in the Antalya region. It was a long, disorienting taxi ride over winding inland roads. The hotel had no beachfront. It just seemed to be an empty luxury hotel built for no reason on a swamp. Sucru met us at a circular drive, stocky, unctuous, bald, with fleshy lips and pale eyes. He was nothing like my grandmother, my skinny, black-eyed grandmother, with her deep voice and booming laugh. Sucru received us in a gazebo, where a waiter bought tea and petite fours. He explained to us that we were sitting in Turkey's first golf hotel. There was a new mania among wealthy American and Scottish people to play golf in exotic locations, for example Malaysia. In Turkey, people were still backward and didn't know about golf hotels. His parents had bought this land for pennies because it didn't have a beachfront, and all Turkish people knew about was beaches. Well, the golfers didn't care about beaches. You gave them a pool and a first-rate golf course and they were happy. In truth, the land here was a little swampier than was totally consistent with a pleasant golf experience. Basically, it was impossible to strike a ball in such a way that it would go anywhere, and a lot of the property would have to be drained, but the main building was finished, for all practical purposes, and Sucru was living there himself along with his daughter. Sara had briefed us on the daughter, a socialite who featured regularly in the tabloids, and his grandson Alp. Alp, he said, was really thriving here, in the empty hotel on a swamp. Alp drove up in a mud-splattered golf cart. Though he was only 8 years old, his barrel-shaped body, paunch, and humorous eyes gave him the aspect of a miniature adult. Get in, Sucru told us. He'll give you the tour. My mother and I looked at each other. After a moment, we got in the golf cart. My mother sat in the back, next to and partially under a large metal rake. I sat in the front next to Alp, around whose neck glinted a tiny golden roller skate on a gold chain. Shifting gears with a professional flourish, he backed into some shrubs and careened into the main drive. We drove past a fleet of parked golf carts, a rolling hill and a mound of sand, then veered into the future golf green. The ground was so swampy that the tires left indentations in the mud. The thing that really struck you directly in the face was the amount of life. Members of God's creation kept flying into your arms and face. The landscape quivered and whirred. The tall grass and palm fronds trembled. The mud seemed to wriggle. Frogs plopped into ponds and unknown creatures rustled among the leaves. Something buzzed loudly past my ear and something or somebody flew into my eye. Alp gunned the motor to get over a small hill. The tires briefly lost their purchase. "Don't worry, I'm here," Alp said. "Gently, dear Alp, my child," my mother said. "I'm going to show you everywhere," Alp said. "You already showed us so much," said my mother. "You haven't seen anything yet." At some point he braked abruptly, leaped out, grabbed the enormous rake, and started to bludgeon the earth. It turned out he was killing a snake. He snapped its spine and then beat it till it stopped moving, reminding me of St. George. "Filthy," he explained, looking back at us and winking. I wasn't sure how things were going for Alp out there at the deserted golf resort in the snake-rich swamp. It was by no means clear that everything was going well, and yet the encounter with him made me feel a glimmer of optimism. I thought I might write something about it, about the golf hotel, but when I tried to think of a plot that led to that swamp, I couldn't face it. Not another hotel. No, I couldn't. When I got back to school in the fall, I changed my major from linguistics and didn't take any more classes in the philosophy or psychology of language. I'm gonna just keep going. I'm gonna make as though a light did not just fall.
No, it's just my.
The filter.
I like it fall. We're not that bad.
I'm going back one sentence because we're right at the end.
Okay, maybe give us a little bit. Let's go through your mind. Right
We're right at the end, so I'm gonna get to what I'm thinking after this. But yeah, anyhow. When I got back to school in the fall, I changed my major from linguistics and didn't take any more classes in the philosophy or psychology of language. They had let me down. I hadn't learned what I had wanted to about how language worked. I hadn't learned anything at all. And that's it. There it is. There it is. There it is.
She learned anything at all.
She hadn't learned anything at all. Yeah, actually, that last line is really good. Very fitting.
Because it's like it shows actually how reality works. Like, you end up actually learning anything. It's pointless.
There it is. Yeah, you take a bunch of classes and you study and you do all this work and you have all these tests so that in the end you could realize that you actually haven't learned anything. I feel that the ending, this ending is very fitting. It's very anticlimactic. There's and it's very much what's to be expected maybe of your freshman year at college, right? You have all these expectations, you have all these hopes, you have all these plans, so that in the end nothing happens. Anyhow, let's take a short break and we'll come back with a brief discussion on the ending of the book. All right, so that's the novel, The Idiot. What do we think? What do we think? Like I was saying, the ending is fitting. Uneventful, anticlimactic, certainly unexciting. But again, that's the whole novel. That's exactly the whole novel. So I think it does fit. From the very beginning, you can see that nothing was going to come from the interactions with Ivan. You know, the last character that she has a serious, you know, just any communication is Svetlana through the postcard. That's and that's it, you know. But it does show how this character Celine is just, you know, she's very perceptive, very observant. She's always on the lookout for things, and precisely know the ending. I'm gonna go back here to the couple last chapters where she said this at this golf hotel in Turkey, and she's thinking about writing about it. You know, she suddenly has this glimmer of optimism, and she says, I thought I might write something about it, about the golf hotel. But when I tried to think of a plot that led to that swamp, I couldn't face it. Because precisely, there is no plot. Everything that has led up until this point in the novel has just been, you know, this endless succession of seemingly unconnected and unrelated events. But that's the novel. That's precisely, you know, it's exactly what Elif Batuman wanted to write. Long, pointless novels, and this is it. That's not to say that it's boring. It's not to say that it's tedious. It's certainly not redundant, right? If you're out of battery, if you're out of juice, anything's going to be just as pointless. Pointless just as this novel. Pointless just as, apparently, according to Celine at least, her freshman year at Harvard. So that's one thing, the nostalgia. I liked all the references included in the novel too. It reminded me a bit of Murakami's Norwegian Wood, one of my favorite novels. And it's another one of another very good college novel, even though it's not so much about college life. It certainly doesn't take place on campus as much as this one. But it's about this college kid, right? Norwegian Wood, and it has all these references to music and literature and art. And this one has even more, right? Anything from the Bible and Chaucer and Dostoevsky to Star Wars. We have the diagnostic and statistical manual of mental disorders. Camus' The Plague. Camus, yeah. Fellini, because Celine also takes a film course. Well,
She's cool.
yeah, she's cool.
She lets herself know this.
Yeah, she definitely knows what's what. And so she mentions La Dolce Vita, La Estrada, Casanova, a bunch of films, The Gift. So book, music, what was it? Albinoni's Adagio, Blues Traveler. Yeah, no, so there's all these cultural references that I also really enjoy that, but really it's a slow novel, not much going on, very introspective, very literary. Right, I would give it. I mean, after reading Ex-Wife, this one seemed a bit, I don't want to say disappointing, but just like Celine says here at the end,
Less exciting.
it's definitely less exciting. Celine says at the very end about all the classes that she took, they had let me down. And I can see why they let her down. Not that the book itself is letting me down, but a bit of the I don't know. I just had a little bit more. I expected a little bit more from a Pulitzer finalist. It has a few good lines here and there.
The ending was pretty good, actually.
The ending is really
The last
good.
line, not the ending.
The last line, oh yeah, let's read that one more time. She says, When I got back to school in the fall, I changed my major from linguistics and didn't take any more classes in the philosophy or psychology of language. They had let me down. I hadn't learned what I had wanted to know about. I hadn't learned what I had wanted to about how language worked. I hadn't learned anything at all. Yeah, there it is. So, those of you getting ready for college in a few months, there it is, guys. Maybe keep your expectations low, your hopes high, right? It's gonna be fun, definitely, but don't try to do. This girl Celine was taking too many classes, I think. Maybe don't try to cram everything into your freshman year.
That's kind of a good idea.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Balance. Learn to balance at this different aspects of life. So that's it. I'm gonna give this book 3.5. I would read more from Elif Batuman. Definitely, I did like her style. I've been interested in reading this. Her first book, not a novel. Her first book is a collection of essays, I think, about reading Russian literature. I would like to read that. But as far as college campus novels go, if I were to recommend anything to you guys, especially to my high school seniors, it's maybe not this. I'd go with Norwegian Wood. Definitely Donut Tarts, The Secret History.
I would go with Normal People.
Is it a college campus?
It's a transition between college, but it also explains college.
Yeah.
Beyond college.
Well, I haven't read it.
Entirely focused.
I haven't read it, but we might want to do actually we should do an episode on Sally Rooney at some point. I've only read her Beautiful World, Where Are You? I liked it, but especially with the series now on, I think Netflix, is it Netflix, Normal People?
No, it's on top today.
Uh,
They don't have Netflix, but
Yeah, I'll look into it. But yeah, maybe we have some exciting plans here. I want to do at some point. I want to do a gentleman in Moscow, because of It's been recommended to me. I've been wanting to read it for a few years now, and the series just came out with Edwin McGregor. So we have some exciting plans. Also, for next episode, we're looking into having finally our first special guests. I don't want to, spoil the surprise, but hopefully that's gonna work, and we're definitely looking forward to that. We'll see about the book. I'm not gonna get into any details just yet. We'll let you guys know. But it's we're not gonna wait so long, because I know this past waiting period has been just a bit exaggerated, right? More than 2 months to get from the first episode to the second one. But anyhow, guys, that's gonna do it for today's episode. Thank you all once more for joining us. I do hope to see you soon again. Well, to do this soon again. Hopefully in less than 2 weeks we'll get this episode posted by the start of May, and we'll let you know as for the next episode with a special guest what novel it's gonna be. I hope it's something a little bit more exciting. But again, thank you all for joining us. It's been a pleasure, guys. Get the fuck out of here. Thank you. See you next time.